Good morning. My name is Luison Lassala. I'm Spanish, but I live in Dublin. I live on the south side of the river. That's significant because this city is divided, as the Dubliners will know, into got the Northsiders and the Southsiders. So I am an adopted Southsider. But I actually run a youth club in the north side, not very far from here, in a fairly deprived part of Dublin called Coolock. And back in 2006, one of the kids in the club comes to me and says, "Louis," that's what they call me over there, I seen you on Vivo. And I said, "You saw me where?" "Seen you on Vivo, and you were saying nasty things about the other leaders. That's very naughty." And I said, "Wow." All the other kids were giggling around, and I said, "Okay, so here I am, an IT consultant who work in youth work. I'm very involved with young people, teenagers in particular, and I don't know what Vivo is." For Vivo, call it Facebook, right? 2006. So I said, if I don't know, what chance do the parents of these kids have to know what their children are doing online in this famous social networking phenomenon? Then you'll very little, hardly anything. Even I remember meeting the Minister for Children at the time, who's now deceased, Brian Lenihan, and I asked him, "Well, what's your government doing about the social networking phenomenon?" And he said, "Yeah, that's kind of talking to each other on the internet." And I said, "Good grief, right? Nobody knows about this." So anyway, I set up on myself to learn about Bebo and MySpace and Facebook and everything else that's out there, Moshi Monsters, Club Penguin, Girl Sense, even Miss Bimbo, and actually coach parents. Because, as Marlene told us at the start of the talk, if there is one area, I think, where parents need third-party experts, is this one, right? And I'm very honored to be invited to this fantastic group to share with you, this wonderful group of people, about how we can help parents be better parents. Right? Now, we've heard a lot about technology from Baba. It's fantastic. The one message I wanted to bring to you, he has already mentioned, so I will reinforce it, and it's very simple. In this day and age, in the 21st century, we parents must endorse technology. We have to embrace technology. We cannot bury the head in the sand and hope that is not happening. And I'm saying this because one of the talks I gave, a few years ago, one of the parents told me, after me talking for an hour and lots of questions and answers and so on, he said, "Look, Louis, I don't know what the fuss is all about. In my home, there is no issue. We just don't have the internet." And that's it. Problem solved, right? And I see you all saying, "No," right? Now, then there were no mobile phones, there was no smartphones. There were mobile phones, yeah, of course, but there was no smartphones, there was no Wi-Fi. It was all controlled at home, pretty much. You had the library, you had the school, but you would hope it would be controlled. Now, it's not the case. People have the internet in their pockets, children and adults. So, the fact that in your home you think you're in control doesn't mean your child is safe, obviously, right? So, unless we are involved, unless we get into it, unless we do it with them, we will never be able to appreciate the risks they are facing, right, by using this technology. Of course, it's not all bad. There's a lot of good stuff. That's why we use it. But we need to appreciate there is some things that might not be very healthy for our children, and we need to be there with them. And this is why I think our talks, Babas and I, are in personal care. Because if we want to care for our children, this is one area we cannot neglect, big time, right? So, I am also going to tell you that I firmly believe it's not so challenging. Like, our generation have now pretty much endorsed technology. Okay, who doesn't have a mobile phone, a smartphone here? Put up your hand if you dare, right? We all have smartphones. We can all have access to the internet. We are doing it. We all have televisions, remote controls, beautiful digital cameras. So it's not such a challenge. It's not overpowering. I think we are much better positioned to help our children than our parents or the children's grandparents. As we heard from Eileen, they really have it difficult, but we don't, so we've no excuse, right? We use technology already. And I think we all now appreciate, because it is so much part of our life, we do appreciate it's very much part of our children's life. It's not an option. I saw on YouTube a documentary, a little very short clip from a school in Madrid where all the third grade, as you call them in the States, or third class in Ireland, got an iPad. And the children made a video to explain to their parents why the iPad is going to help them. Many reasons. They don't have to carry this big bag with all the heavy books, and they're going to learn together, they're going to share things with each other. But it's very much part of their life, technology. I think we know that. Baba said it, and I don't have to explain. But what I do need to emphasize is that you need to be there with them when they are learning. And this is the key message from my presentation, that you need to you need to be there. And I like to use the analogy of teaching a child to swim. Have you ever thrown a baby into a pool and expect him to swim? Is it more likely that you will get into the pool first and hold the baby, the 1 or the 2-year-old, and show him the movements, hold him there, be there with them? You never dream of throwing him to the pool. I have seen babies being thrown into a pool, and I was horrified. My niece got this into her head that for safety, her child, my grandnephew, was going to learn to swim at the age of 1. So she went to this swimming lessons where they throw the baby and they expect the baby to turn around and kind of float and move. And I was horrified. The baby was crying like a... But so in the digital world, we need to do the same. We need to be there with them. We need to act with them. We need to learn with them. For those of you who have teenage sons, I don't know if you've ever given the keys of the car to your 12-year-old and said, off you go, drive. No, you sit in the car, you give them the keys, but you sit in the car with them, and you drive with them, and you teach them what to do, and so on. So the same here, right? We need to be there with them. Now, as Baba mentioned, there are boundaries, there are ways of behaving online which are important. Every social relationship has an etiquette. So on the online world, we can call it, we have an etiquette. So if you bring your daughter to a party, birthday party, her friends, and she starts sticking her fingers into the cake, or scribbling with the crayons on the wall, and you say, honey, that's not the way you behave at a party. Well, the same online. You could teach them how to behave online. There's an etiquette of behaving online, right? And it's tried and tested. And one example I use very often in my talks is, if you see your 12-year-old darling out in the park outside from your front top window, you see her hanging around with a bunch of 20-somethings, sharing on their smartphones all the pictures from the party last weekend, the disco. These 20-somethings will be up to God knows what. And you're saying, honey, just come home, okay? That's not the kind of people you want to be mixing with. You might be, something you might learn, something you might not like, might upset you, but that's exactly what they're doing when they're in social media. They are hanging out with 20-somethings, 30-somethings. They can if they want to. I'm not saying that all the kids do, a lot of them do, okay? So you need to embrace technology, you need to be there with them, but you don't need to be an expert. And this is, I think, is a factor that people feel, well, I'll never be able to know as much as my children do. Perhaps. But you need to know enough. I mean, most of us here cook, and we're not experts, managers on experts on dietary management. We know how to cook, we know how to provide healthy cooking, but we don't consider ourselves experts. But just because we're not experts doesn't mean we stop cooking. Right? So the same in this, we don't have to be an expert. In fact, the best way to learn about technology and about social media online. By the way, online, I don't like when people talk about the real world and the virtual world. Stop. In the offline world and the online world, because the online world is as real as the offline one. Okay, so let's stop talking about the real world. Kids don't live in a other non-real world. They live in the real world, which happens to be online. Having said that, so we don't have to be experts, but if we want to become experts, the best way to learn, I think, is with our children. Since they are the ones who seem to be more able to pick it up faster, why don't we learn from them, with them? Let them teach us how to do it. I mean, how many of you have seen your young kid, teaching her or his granddad to use the remote control in the television, right? Well, let's be humble and say, well, maybe you can show me how to use the latest iPhone or whatever gadget they happen to be into. Be there with them. Appreciate that all the social media and most of the technology they use has already safety features embedded, whether it's YouTube, obviously Facebook, Google, right? I mean, how long would it take you to sit down with your daughter and go through her Facebook privacy settings? I'd say it'll take much less than spending the morning in the shopping mall. And yet we've no problem spending hours shopping around. And we are not prepared to spend half an hour or an hour going through her safety features, which is much more important for her safety and her welfare. So that's one thing we can do. Another thing is to be aware that there are filters and there are monitoring apps we can install in their phones if we want to keep an eye on what they're doing. Doesn't mean snooping. It means to let them know if they're in trouble, we're there to help them. We can know. And sometimes even having that sort of monitoring software can be a deterrent for children doing stupid things. There's this girl who gives talks with me, because I always bring teenagers to give these talks to parents, and she tells, against her own reputation, if you like, that one day she wanted to go with her friends on Saturday night. Mom said, no way, you're not going into town, Grafton Street, that kind of thing. Anyway, she was walking down Grafton. She told her mom she was going babysitting, and that's fine because she does a lot of babysitting at weekends. But around 11 o'clock at night, she was walking down Grafton Street, which is the shopping area of Dublin, beautiful part of Dublin, the city centre, and her mom rings her and says, honey, or whatever her name was, what are you doing walking down Grafton Street when you're supposed to be babysitting? Wow. How do you know that? I'll tell you when you get home in the next 10 minutes. Right? Come home right now. So she learned the lesson. I'm never going to tell a lie to my mother. It's not worth it. As Ellen said, it's not worth it, right? Because technology is there to help us keep an eye on our children. Right. So do engage with your children. Even teenagers appreciate this kind of help. Another story from this time a boy who helped me with these talks. He always tells the story of when he found out his father was on Facebook. He went berserk. He freaked out and said, Dad, you can't do that. You're imposing in my privacy. And he said, well, you know what? If the whole world can see what you're writing, why do you care that your dad does as well? I mean, I care for you. Surely you shouldn't have a problem that I see what you're telling the world. The guy said, well, Dad, I think you're right. But then he ran over to his sister and said, Kira, you better clean up your Facebook because Dad is on it. So, but they do appreciate it. They come to see the point, all right? So don't be afraid that you're intruding into their privacy. So I finish with my advice. As Baba said, engage with technology, embrace it, start them up with you from as young as, was it 12, 15 months? Show them how they can set up a safer environment for themselves so that you can rest assured they're going to be fine. Open the channels of communication for sure, and give them good example. I think this is crucial. as parents, this is one area we need to give good example. Don't be on your mobile phone during meals. Don't be stuck on your iPad. Don't be saying silly things. Don't have a dual personality online and offline. Be who you are wherever you are. You know, because I think kids find it, well, my dad is like acting cool, but he's not cool. Why is he acting cool on Facebook? Right? So that kind of thing, right? And finally, I'll leave you with this. I think this is one area where you do need to seek help of third-party experts, because it's a fairly fast and growing area, and we're here to help. Thank you for listening.